The fall from Eden, sin, redemption, and the way of the Tao. The myth of the fall from Eden remains one of the most powerful stories in the Western imagination. It tells of innocence lost, of sin and exile, and of a possible path back to harmony with the divine. Yet this narrative is not merely theological. Read symbolically and psychologically, it maps the trajectory of human consciousness itself, and the struggles each individual undergoes in relation to God, nature, others, and the self. In Jungian terms, Eden represents an original state of unconscious wholeness. Humanity in paradise lived in harmony with nature, with God, and with itself. There was no awareness of opposites, no estrangement, no sense of good and evil, of life and death. Like the Taoist vision of life in accordance with Wu Wei, Edenic existence was effortless flow, innocence unbroken. But innocence cannot remain forever. Just as a child must grow up, so humanity could not remain in the womb of paradise. The fruit of the tree of knowledge, whether we imagine it as reason, language, or self-awareness, awakened a new dimension of being. In tasting it, humanity entered into consciousness. This awakening, however, came at a price. Denise Levertov, in her poem about Eden called Contraband, describes the fruit of knowledge as the fruit of reason, meant to be consumed in small, nourishing doses, but instead devoured in excess. Reason became tyranny, a polished mirror that reflects only the self, cutting us off from God's immediacy. Here we see the essence of the fall. Consciousness became estrangement. The ego emerged, bringing with it language, time-binding, the splitting of the atom, the possibility of both creation and destruction. Our grafted-on God brains gave us powers beyond the other animals, but also condemned us to anxiety, self-consciousness, and alienation from the infinite. Theologically, this estrangement is called sin, not merely disobedience, but violation of the Tao, a departure from the natural law of heaven. Sin is violence, not only against others, but against the self and the divine spark within. Addiction, vice, and carelessness become not merely personal failings, but wounds inflicted on the connective tissue of love itself. Lucifer, the light bringer, and ambiguity in the fall. Some traditions demonize the serpent, while others cast him as redeemer, the one who opens human eyes to light. What kind of God would want you dumb? The serpent asks. This is a provocative revisioning of the myth. Lucifer as light-bearer, the rejected shadow of God that still contains divinity. Jung would recognize here the archetypal ambiguity of the fall. Was it a catastrophe or a necessity? Both. For individuation to unfold, humanity had to awaken even at the cost of exile. The serpent thus embodies the archetype of the initiator, dangerous, disruptive, but ultimately a bringer of consciousness. The I Ching offers a complementary image. In hexagram 23, line 6, we read of the large fruit uneaten. Though the tree of innocence has been split apart, the seed of renewal remains. What is not consumed has the potential to grow again. The inferior destroys itself, but the superior finds new life. Psychologically, this means that even in estrangement, the self preserves a seed of wholeness. The unconscious holds within it the potential for integration, waiting for the moment of new growth. The fall does not abolish the possibility of redemption. It plants its very conditions. If sin is estrangement from the Tao, redemption is its opposite, a return to harmony, but now at a higher level of consciousness. We cannot go back to Edenic innocence, but we can move forward into individuation, the reconciliation of opposites, the integration of shadow, the realization of the self. This is not perfection, nor is it instantaneous. It unfolds gradually through sincere effort, through humility, compassion, moderation, and graciousness. The I Ching reminds us that a simple, heartfelt offering outweighs the grandest display of empty ritual. God, Tao, heaven, whatever name we choose, looks into the heart, not at appearances. And sometimes, when gradual growth fails, dramatic interventions arrive, tragedies, synchronicities, humiliations, defeats of the ego. These can feel cruel, but in truth, they are the self's way of calling us back to reality, forcing us to confront our illusions. Heaven's judgment is not retribution, but guidance. Here is the next task: work on this. If the fall is estrangement, Then redemption requires a reckoning with the truth. This reckoning comes as the judgment of heaven. Yet unlike the terrifying images of eternal damnation found in some traditions, this judgment is fundamentally kind. It is merciful because it points us forward, but to the ego it feels like defeat. The ego wants to think of itself as good, as righteous, as virtuous, yet the unconscious and the self that inhabits it knows the score. Nothing is lost. Every evasion, every self-deception, every harm to love is recorded in the deep psyche. When heaven's judgment comes, it is less a thunderbolt of wrath and more a gentle but firm command. This is what you must work on next. Sometimes this comes as quiet intuition, sometimes as the sharp mirror of dreams, and sometimes as catastrophe. Tragedy and trauma often serve as dramatic interventions, waking us from our hypnotic abstractions. We imagine ourselves virtuous, yet reality exposes us. The experience is humbling, but it is also a chance to turn, to begin again, to align more closely with the Tao. At the heart of this process lies love. Sin, in its deepest sense, is the killing of love. Neglect of the self, betrayal of others, indifference toward nature, estrangement from God. Conversely, redemption is the restoration of love in its full spectrum. To love God with heart, mind and conduct is to love the infinite. To love others sincerely is to honor that same divinity within them. To love oneself is to guard the spark entrusted to one's care. Thus, love is not merely an emotion but the connective tissue of reality. To sever it is to fall into exile. To nurture it is to live in unity with the mystic dream time, the Tao, the self. How then do we walk the path of redemption? Not by grand gestures alone, but through sincere daily effort. The I Ching reminds us of this in hexagram 63, line 5. The neighbor with a small but heartfelt offering is blessed more than the neighbor who sacrifices an ox without sincerity. Magnificence without warmth is hollow. Simplicity with reverence is genuine. This speaks directly to the lived struggle of transformation. To quit smoking, to discipline the body with diet and exercise, to refuse to burden one's father with unnecessary grief. These are not abstract ideals, but real sacrifices. They are sincere offerings made to God, to love, and to the self. They carry more weight than the most elaborate rituals. Transformation is gradual. It requires persistence, humility, and patience. But sincerity is the key. A small movement toward humility, compassion, moderation, contentment, graciousness, or wu-wei may seem insignificant, yet in the eyes of heaven it is more real than perfectionism or pride. The story of Eden, then, is not a single event in the distant past, but a pattern that repeats in every life. Innocence gives way to estrangement. Estrangement opens the possibility of love. Love is renewed through sacrifice, sincerity, and small offerings. Redemption is not a final state, but a process, a continuous effort of reconnection with God, the Tao, the Self. The fall could be seen as both catastrophe and necessity. Without it, we would remain unconscious, innocent, but unknowing. With it, we suffer estrangement, yet we also gain the chance to awaken, to integrate, to love consciously. Sin is the violence of disconnection. Redemption is the quiet return of love in daily life. God, heaven, Tao, whatever name we choose, does not demand perfection or hollow ritual. What is asked of us is sincerity, the willingness to offer our true selves, however small, however incomplete. In this, the path of individuation and the way of the Tao converge. The scaffolding of religion, myth, ritual, and philosophy are aids along the way. But in the end, the house is built through love, humility, and sincerity. And when the scaffolding falls away, what remains is the living connection, the mystic dream time, the Tao, the eternal self.